Okay, well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first session of this morning up here in the breakout area, I guess you could call it. And this session is going to be all about training. And on the stage, we have myself, Graham Reed. I'm a freelance lighting cameraman, lighting director, trainer, and also chair of the ITTP.
My name's Lawrence Murphy. I'm Programme Leader of BSc Media Technology at Salford University.
My name's Anne-Marie. I'm Head of Customer Training for Europe for Sony.
My name's Fraser Jury. I'm Course Leader for MA Wildlife at the University of Salford.
And I'm John Herbert. I'm a Broadcast Support Manager for Blackmagic Design.
Now, a little while ago, in fact, seemed like last month, we were all very excited about 3D, and lots of universities and broadcasters invested lots of money in the 3D technology. And I know some universities got really big into developing 3D technology. And now we're all down into, now that's all seems to be forgotten about, and now we're into the world of 4K. So if I was a student entering university or entering industry, what do you think I'm going to be up against in 2 years' time or 3 years' time when I leave university? What would be the thing that I need to know about? I mean, is it 3D again? Is it 4K? What would be the thing I need to really get my head around as a new student? Yeah, let's go around the block, as it were.
Well, the challenge with 3D is that, unfortunately, 3D is not dead. The cinema's still kicking it around. For television, it's gone away for the time being. But 4K in Europe is something that we're going to need to, our graduates are going to need to know about, because Japan and Korea are pushing the 8K,
Indeed,
ultra high def 2 agenda.
right.
But in Europe, 120-inch TVs across the diagonal in the living room aren't realistic. So as a delivery mechanism, 8K may not happen in Europe.
Right,
It's,
yes.
it's debatable whether it will
Yes,
or not.
yes.
4K as a delivery mechanism is doable, and our students graduating need to understand about the transmission characteristics of 4K, how we're going to deliver it, the importance of OTT, because that's taken on a lot more significance, and then the changeover from baseband to IP.
We just actually define what OTT is for those who don't know what you're talking about.
Over-the-top delivery systems which are not linked directly with broadcasters. So companies like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Dish,
Yes, yes.
is subsidiaries in the States. They're financing productions to be made in 4K and 6K, and then delivering it in a variety of different bit rates,
Just so you understand what you mean by OTT.
which is what the broadcasters
Yes,
can't do
yes,
at the moment, unfortunately.
yes. So, Anne, from Sony's perspective then, what do you think students should be studying now to make them employable in 2 or 3 years' time?
I think there's not too much actually more to add than what you've just said, because you covered it all very nicely. I think it's just having the broad perspective of actually seeing, what's here to stay. It's not going away. People are already talking about 8K, as well as 4K and even beyond that. So I think it's really about just starting to get their heads around about the technology. The craft application is another thing beyond that, but I think it's a well-known and accepted fact that it's here to stay. So just seeking out as much information as they can from manufacturers, from education establishments. There's not much more to add than what you said.
So, Fraser, would you like to add to the future?
I think it's just be aware of the technologies and be aware of which technologies you can use for your particular area of specialism. I come at it more from a post-production background, and with Lawrence we've looked at it from production and post-production. So, it's constantly changing. It has been for the last 20 years. So I think for students, particularly for anyone training, just keep your eye on a broad range of trends, because, otherwise, you could end up sort of not leading yourself down a sort of dead-end path, but just keep your horizons as wide as possible in the technology and how to utilise that technology.
Good advice. So from Blackmagic viewpoint, what do you think the future is for?
I think the new technologies that are emerging, the 3D, the 4K, the 8K, are important, but I also think that students leaving a university should still look very carefully at first principles of engineering, that they should be looking at lighting technologies, they should be looking at sound, they should be looking at all the sort of technologies that underpin the creative process. The 4K, whatever it happens to be, is a method of delivery, but you still have light traveling through a lens to a camera to a sensor, whether it happens to be film or CCD or CMOS. So understand the technology and be enthusiastic about the technology you're working in.
Now, as a cynic, let's discuss about 4K. You all mentioned 4K at the moment. Now, I have this sort of theory that we're all actually being conned by manufacturers of display devices, because they all got geared up to flog us all 3D tellies, which nobody bought. So suddenly they thought, oh, we can't sell any more 3D tellies, nobody's buying it. So what can we sell? Oh, let's sell 4K tellies instead. And so generate a market for 4K, because we need to sell tellies, says Samsung and Sony. And I mean, so what's your take on why 4K?
Well, one of the things that the manufacturer-led argument is one that's rolled out every time we bring a new standard out. But the problem with that is, when you actually look at when ultra-high definition was started to develop, the first development project was 2002. So it's been developed for a significant length of time. Both standards, ultra-high def 1 and ultra-high def 2, side by side. So there's been an ultra-high def agenda for quite a long time. What's difficult to sort of hone in on is which technology is going to be appropriate for which market, because it's not, I don't think it's as simple as saying 4K is going to be a worldwide delivery platform, because that's not true. It's going to be a delivery option.
Right, okay.
Yeah? And that's a different mechanism. We're used to broadcasters driving standards. You know, we want HD, let's the broadcasters, and then the manufacturers in bed with the process.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not necessarily the case for ultra-high definition. So people are going to be dealing with a different rollout model.
Right, because I spent some time at the Sonys place in Basingstoke some years ago, learning all about 3D, which was all very exciting. So, which of course, a bit of a waste of time really. So, so what's your take on why 4K from the Sony perspective?
I think from my perspective, it's actually quite simple. Sony's mantra in general, and always has been, is about sort of inspiring and exciting our customers. And just as a consumer myself, putting aside being a Sony employee, if you look back, a number of years, a few decades, we were watching things in black and white, then sort of in colour. It's just the nature of man, humans wanting to move forward to have a better visual experience. And you touched on high dynamic range. Yeah. Exactly the same applies. And I've got dodgy eyes, so looking at 3D doesn't really do it for me. But even I can sit and watch 4K as a consumer, yeah. And it's just the most immersive experience. So I think from a manufacturer's perspective, and just also maybe more generally, just that desire to bring the closest experience to reality that you possibly could get, which is therefore the most immersive, credible, which therefore ultimately does inspire and excite. It's as simple as that.
And Fred, would you like to add to this? Why 4K?
I was a bit cynical about it at first, but actually looking at it now and looking at the picture quality, looking at some of the productions I've seen on BBC and ITV, the picture quality is just stunning. And the detail that you can get, and from a post perspective, you can do so much with it, with that really, really high quality picture. So I think it's here to stay.
And from Blackmagic viewpoint, obviously I was using one of your 4K cameras last week, so obviously I've sort of bought into it. But so from a Blackmagic
there's a
viewpoint,
huge amount of 4K production going on, but I think there's also a sea change in people's homes. At one time, we used to view on small 19 or 20-inch screens that we then, aspired to have a 26-inch and then a 32-inch screen. And that's fine as far as HD is concerned, but when you go beyond 32-inch screens, if you're going up to 50-inch, 80-inch, 90-inch screens, then the definition of 4K certainly does come in. And we have a lifestyle change as well, in that people are having cinemas in their own homes. That rather than going out to the cinema, they're purchasing Netflix and things like this and streaming directly into their homes, and they want a cinematic experience in their homes.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that, you know, that the 4K is there. And there is another side to it as well, which is that we're talking about broadcasting here, but there is a big industry out there in audio-visual. There are people like churches and people like that who want to do projection presentation of the highest quality. So whilst we tend to focus on broadcast, the AV, the presentation, the churches, all that sort of industry is consuming these large screens because they want the production value, you know, a cinematographic production value in their own home.
Indeed. Yeah. So this really for list it off with our two friends from Salford. Now, as lecturers and trainers, how do you keep up to date then with what's going on in Insta? I mean, it's got all this 4K stuff happening and different codecs happening and all IP delivery so how do you as lecturers keep up to date with what's going on in the world around us?
It's a big advantage being right in the middle of Media City for a start.
Yeah.
We've got, me and Fraser have been, I know we don't look like it, but we've been teaching for about 15 years each. So
you do look like it, actually.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you. So one of the nice things is we've got lots of our graduates working for lots of the different companies. So in a way, we sort of have our intelligence division, which feeds back then to the existing cohort. But both me and Fraser are practicing researchers as well. So my research area is ultra-high def implementation, how we're actually going to deliver ultra-high definition, and where and when it's appropriate. Yeah, because that's something that we've never had to deal with in broadcast before. In broadcast, it's been, let's shoot everything at one standard and deliver at one standard. Well, that's not necessarily true now. We shoot with lots of different standards, lots of different high dynamic range, lots of different capabilities.
Right.
And then we conform it for a form of delivery. Well, what happens if we can conform it for lots of different methods of delivery?
But that's all about technology, but how about the working environment, like crewing levels or engineering levels or work shift patterns?
We have a close link with most of the big companies like BBC, ITV, CIS.
So do you feel very privileged that you are where you are?
Yeah,
physically, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a sort of back scratching exercise because the companies know where we are. We're the on-site university, so they know the kind of courses we run, the calibre of the students that graduate. And John's got quite a few of my graduates working for him.
Lovely.
So we've had a number of mine working for them. So it's one of them where the industry needs new blood, and it needs a regular supply of new blood, but it needs new blood that's looking in the right places. IP, the change from baseband to IP is a big, big challenge for the industry in the next 5 years. And it's as big a challenge as high dynamic range or ultra-high definition.
Does that actually, this change in what you mentioned, does that concern you that there won't be enough people who understand it in terms of engineering people particularly?
No, but what I think what's going to happen is that the senior engineers need to realise that they need to pull in young blood who have got the right tools in their toolbox. Yeah.
And do you feel that's being done? I mean,
at the minute, partially. I think it needs more coherent pushing from us, from the industry, to actually hone down what key skills the next generation of engineers need, because they're very different. I started 84, 85, yeah? See, I told you I didn't really know. Or the view lay works really well.
You're a young boy compared
Thanks,
to me.
Mate. And,
a bit of chicken.
That key skills I had is very different than the key skills I make sure my students have before they enter the market.
Right. So, I mean, this is also, I want to broaden that a bit, because I was working with a guaranteed sound engineer last week. He was now doing children in need. And he was telling me that he was at a large OB site. He was programming, he went in to program the sound system. And a previous night, an SIS engineer had been in to do the pre-rig, and a much older SIS person
Yes.
had been in to do the pre-rig, and left a note for him saying, "I'm sorry, I can't quite get this to work. Will you sort it out for me?"
Yep.
And this was like a 55-year-old cis bloke talking to a 35-year-old bloke. So how do you think the industry, like this bloke from CIS, can actually keep up to date with the new sound system, the programming of new sound desks, and all the something like new read-all sound systems?
Yeah.
I mean, how can the industry, do you think, perhaps this is your general question, how can the industry train people working industry and keep them up to date with the changes like Black Magic or Sony are bringing out all the time?
Well, from Sonny's perspective, love the question, thank you. We've definitely transitioned in the more recent years away from the traditional sort of product type training. We still do it when it's required, of course, but because changes are there and happening all the time, the need is absolutely there. So we make sure that we have a very, very keen focus on all the new technologies, and basically, it's my job, as you were just saying, it's my job to join the dots. So if it's IP Live or HDR or 4K, it is making sure that we've got enough knowledge and education happening out there, and that can take different formats. We live in the internet age, so we have a free online learning platform called the Knowledge Portal. And that's not just all about products. Far from it. I'd say 80-90% of all the e-learning modules on there are all around the technologies and indeed the craft, the how-tos. So it's not my job, I'm relieved to say, to have to try and sell. I'm just there to act as that middleman / woman to facilitate that knowledge transfer. To make sure that people, the next generation and beyond that, actually will have the skills and knowledge to move forward.
So how about Black Magic? I mean, how do you work with present engineering staff?
In a similar sort of way, as a manufacturer, we have an Educate and Enable program, which really we're talking to our distributors and resellers, because they're the people who have contact with the end user, the public, the guys and the people who are buying our stuff in the first place. So it's about making sure that the resellers themselves are educated, so that when somebody comes in and says, well, what is it, all this IP technology you're talking about, they're equipped to say to somebody, well, it's about this. It's also in terms of our technical support, we often get engineers ringing up and they'll be saying, well, I'm not sure about how this particular device is going to connect with this device. And we find our younger tech support guys are guiding older engineers like myself, in the art of IP or something like this. And it's about being very sensitive to the fact that there's some very knowledgeable guys. I'm 60 plus now, so they are. But there's some very knowledgeable guys out there, but they need slowly bringing into the fold. And whilst these things can be very daunting, IP sits there grinning at you till you put the right numbers in. And you've got to make sure that you can bring an engineer along who's been brought through an analog portal and say, right, well, we're now working in an IP-based environment, but it's actually quite simple. And if you talk to people in a simple way, then people will come back to you and ask for more information. So it's about really just giving people the confidence to say, actually, I need to learn. If they want to learn, they will learn.
So, I mean, we mentioned this earlier about teaching the basics.
Yeah.
So do you all agree then that for young people, students particularly, need to really understand the basics? I mean, one of my little bugbears is I often ask students about a power loading from a domestic socket, and I'm always shocked to know how many students don't know power loading. I'm sure all your students do, but many students don't even know that. And also I often ask students now about a logarithmic scale. Now, a lot of students don't even know what a logarithmic scale is. I think it's a log, something that you put on a wood fire. No, so I mean, how important do you think is that universities do actually teach these basic understanding?
This came as a shock to me a few years ago when I found out that logs aren't really taught at GCSE level anymore because they have calculators. So when you're trying to explain to students that the aperture ring is a logarithmic scale rather than a linear scale, you have to take them back to first principles. Yeah. Well, as long as we know that, we can do it. But they need to have the early skills, so engineering, IP.
So do you think actually from your perspective as a lecturer in university, that it goes back it'll go back to A levels and O levels if
Yeah.
they're still around.
Yeah.
O levels are still around O levels. Not
Yeah,
quite
we've
sure.
been pushing for a GCSE in media technology for 4 years
Right.
to help feed the hybrid area of production and engineering, and it's been difficult to actually lobby for it, and we'll get there in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's that there isn't a clear, coherent path for.
No.
I think the
technical
importance of first principles needs to be stressed right the way through a
Yeah.
course.
Exactly.
And one of the problems we find, and we take students from Salford and from Manchester and from other universities, that we'll start talking about decibels, or we're talking about millivolts or whatever it happens to be, and they said, "Oh yeah, we did that in first year, but I've
That's
forgotten
right.
about that."
Yeah.
And it's getting them to understand that this is the basis of their science, that they've got to take this with them through first year, second year, third year, through their research and into their world of work. And we find we're having to revisit a lot of this. I mean, with our young engineers, we do sort of a session at the end of the day where we talk about decibels, or we'll talk about Ohm's law. We use resources like BBC Bite Size, which is absolutely fantastic, for basic principles and things like that. So it's utilising what's around and actually getting them to talk, and just be able to say how many watts, will this run at, and will this blow this up if I plug this into that? And their engineering skills improve because they start to be confident in their first principles.
Yeah.
I think it's. I think you do need to pull them back to basics, because find that a lot of the times in that they're fantastic. They'll jump onto pieces of software and get to grips with them really quickly, but then when you sort of pull them back and say, "Do you know this? Do you know that?" and they're like, "Oh no." So, I mean, we try and do it. Pull them back to basics, and we have also a big reading list, a list of books and publications that they need to keep going back to and saying, "No, you read this," and stressing the importance of the basics for them. But also, I think it's not just those technical skills that they need. When they go into the industry, we also put a big importance of their interpersonal skills and how the working environment when they get into big organisations, like BBC or ITV or something like that. So it's a balance between the two.
Can I ask you about life skills? And I often find students who want to get to 35 Arcadia Avenue, Newtown by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning will find it a great deal of a problem to get to 35 Arcadia Avenue, Newtown by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I mean, and it's the life skills also that some people find trouble getting to grips with. I mean, how do you find basic life skills? Oh, you mentioned interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
Of course, it's very important. But how about general life skills? Which, of course, is very important in this industry. I mean, especially high pressure.
It's really important. It's really important, and we do keep stressing to them that you need to be able to adapt to any environment, because every environment's different, and there is a strong reliance on technology now. Sometimes you need to move away from that and just try and problem solve and work outside the sort of.
Because I find with students, just timekeeping students is often a major issue. I mean, I was at university and half of them turned up 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
And I think this is any student here, don't be late for your lectures.
Yeah.
I find this and to get the idea of turning up on time seems to be something which students find very hard to comprehend.
Yeah. I think a certain engineer not a million miles away instilled in me when he trained me when I was very young, that to be a competent engineer in any studio environment, on any location environment, you need to be there before everybody else so that you can
Turn
be
things
confident.
on.
Yeah, and you can be confident that
Make
you
sure
know
it all
everything's
works.
working.
Yes.
And I instill that into my
Yes.
my students and my graduates, because it's professionalism. Yeah, we've got to set the example as well, because I take my students on location with me when I go and shoot, so that they see if we're out on location and we might be working a 12, 14-hour day, then we're working 14 hours. It's not,
Do you find it's a shock, some of them?
Yeah, they definitely look at you differently when you get back the following week, when they realise that, one, you can actually work a 14-hour day, and two, you know what you're doing.
Right, yes.
Yeah, and I think I'm always an advocate of lead from the front. You know, I don't ask my students to do something I'm not either capable or prepared to do. And if they see that from the person who's teaching them, then they understand that's the way they're supposed to act.
You gonna add?
I think it's, because we try to, certainly with some of the students that I look after, try and get them work placements, engagements with industry, simply because, we want to just show them that that they do need to get experience of that and working within different environments. And I think Lawrence is right. Sometimes when they've, a week working in a post house or wherever is like, they're always coming back going, it is like you said it would be, or it's been a real eye opener. I think is the common phrase that you see that students come back with. So it is important that they do understand, like turning up on time.
Yeah. Now, the trouble is with it, one of the problems at the moment in the UK is there are, I think about 120 universities all doing broadcast television courses, or broadcast this, or whatever you call it. So in every year there must be 5, 6, 10, 20,000 students leaving university to all looking for work in the broadcast media, television, film industry. So what do you think a student should really look for as his USP effectively? I mean, what will make a student stand out from the other 20,000 students when they apply for a job in a particular working environment? How would you advise a student to make his USP, as it were?
Well, there's a different metric for production and engineering.
Right.
There aren't enough broadcast engineering courses in the country. We're really short on broadcast engineering courses. Production, we've got a plethora of them, and the problem a lot of senior engineers then have is they put an advert in for a junior engineer, and they get 2,000 production graduates applying for a job thinking it's the first step on the ladder, and they haven't got the key skills that they need to be an engineer. That's a problem that we're going to keep on having. What we need to do is grow the courses that are specifically aimed at the technical and the engineering side of the industry.
So, Anne, from your viewpoint, what do you think, if you're looking at all these students talking to you, what do you think, what makes anybody stand out from the crowd?
Really simple, one word: passion.
Yeah.
I think everything we've said here, yes, there's still a way to go in terms of joining the dots a little better, so that my team and all the educational materials and knowledge that we have can filter through to the students at unis and doing these kind of courses. But what will always separate you in life is, okay, you have those skills, that's sort of the written, the theoretical part, and maybe a bit of work experience. But if you're sat looking at 200 CVs or 2,000 or whatever, the person that's going to jump off the page is somebody that really comes across as passionate. So they speak very eloquently, and it's just blindingly obvious and evident that this is what they want to be doing. So in order to get to that bit, you need to make sure that they've had exposure to actually know, is this the route I want to take? So you've got to have engaging learning available.
I think it's a combination of personal skills, technical skills, adaptability, flexibility, and also take advantage of networking opportunities wherever they're available for the students.
How about from Magic? When you look,
I agree with everything else that's been said, but certainly for me, assuming the universities have done their job properly and educated, then I'm just looking for enthusiasm and engagement, and then we will do the rest.
So we already mentioned online training, and that is something which people look for. I mean, people say, "Oh, I want to light. I know about lighting. I went on Google, for example." So, what's your views then on sort of online training courses? I mean, there are so much around, especially in America, particularly. You get on an American website, which will train you to be a cameraman. And I went on one recently and said you can be a cameraman. You can earn $80,000 a year after your first year. So it's an American cameraman's website. So what do you think? So what do you think about these online training courses?
Like any other form of training, you know, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think the important thing is that you never take all the information you need from one source.
No.
So you need to shop around and say, well, this particular website is saying this and this course says that. I wouldn't trust a bus driver to drive me from A to B if he'd only done an internet course on bus driving. So I'd assume there was some practical experience in there as well. So it points you in the right direction. It's the equivalent of an old-fashioned textbook, I suppose, that you can read it in theory, but you've got to do it in practice.
Yeah.
So by all means, there's some extremely good training courses out there where you need to see things in operation. And that will give you a starting point, but I still think you need that opportunity for hands-on play. I think play is the quickest and most efficient way that people learn through play. And the more opportunity we can give people to play either in the work environment or through university or college, then the better, really.
So Fred, what's your view about
I would agree.
Googling
There's some fantastic online resources there, but they don't always maybe match your method of learning and engagement. So I think that, using 2 or 3 different ones, but also sometimes just sitting down with students on a one-to-one basis, or even peer-to-peer within a classroom, can kind of take it. They're a great starting block, but I think you need to move. You need to look for other things to really get to grips, and sometimes peer experience or experience from other practitioners is a great add-on, and sometimes just jumps you that little bit further.
So Anne-Marie, from the Sony viewpoint, you obviously have a lot of online training courses. I'm sure if you go to the Sony website, you'll find hundreds, from learning to how to work the latest F55 camera to plugging up a digital converter. So how do you think about online training courses?
I think they're excellent. We can't walk away from them because we live in this technological age. I would say, it's just like a puzzle. It is one piece, or 1 or 2 pieces. And very much as the gentleman here have said, it is just a stepping stone. So yeah, it's a great place to start, and you can get a level of knowledge. I was going to use a car analogy. You said the bus one. Yeah. If you did an online driving test, does that mean you're actually, when you physically get in the car, going to be able to drive off successfully without crashing or hitting the pavement? Maybe, maybe not. And it's just coming back to the fundamentals. Let's not get over complex in our theory. Let's just be honest, we're humans. So yes, there's 3 sort of main learning types, activist, pragmatist, theorist, etc. But we are all, at the end of the day, humans, so we need a combination of, now we can have the free online learning, but also then we run master classes where you actually get some hands-on time, more peer-to-peer, one-to-one training. It's one piece of a puzzle.
So Fred, what's your opinion of?
I think as an entry level for new students, they can be very useful. They can back up. It's like extra reading that we used to get them to do from books, to get them to do from online resources like lynda.com and places like that. Very good resources. But then the other end of the scale is the point you were making before about senior engineers in the field who want to learn new techniques or new technologies that they're going to be dealing with in their area. Online resources are vital for that because as senior engineers, we just don't have the time to be spending, taking time out to take a week to do an intensive course. So they can be useful, but they've got to be handled carefully.
Right. Now, I often get asked by young people, predominantly want to be a lighting cameraman sort of, that's what I do. And they say, Graham, should I take a degree? And I've worked with some people who are excellent in that, who haven't done a degree in television, whatever, and are good at their jobs. So are degrees worth it?
I think I
know it's all interest because if you weren't a degree, you would be in a job.
I'm going to be in the programme, obviously.
I know you're a bit biased about
I
this.
am, yeah. But I think it's the same from when I graduated. If you could buddy up with a good lighting camera operator or a good senior engineer at a junior level, then Yeah, there's apprentice schemes and things like that. You know, I teach on the BBC apprentice scheme. Yeah, so that's a different model than a degree.
Right.
So there are different methods of learning, different modes of learning, but degrees are a metric for the industry. The industry understands what skills somebody should have when they finish the degree. So when you are bombarded by 5,000 applications, it's a way to actually filter through.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I do have a very clear opinion on this. I think.
I thought you might have.
Yeah. I think actually it's incumbent upon manufacturers, such as Sony and others, to connect even more deeply, with education establishments to actually bring, the degree to life, as it were. So you have theory, you have practice. So we just need to work closer together.
Yeah.
And then that degree, means even more maybe than it currently does in some instances.
Yeah.
It's just in the round.
Yeah, that's good.
I think
I'm sure you agree as well, being a lecturer.
Yeah, I think you need the blend of the theory and the practice, but sometimes a degree offers you all sorts of different other options that you can look at just beside your own skill, and you might find sometimes that you may think you want to do one particular field, and then you start studying or looking at something else and decide, actually that's what I want to do. So I think that there is, and I would agree with Anne-Marie, I think that what we're looking for universities need to do more and more is work with manufacturers, work with industry, and make and design courses that suit both.
Yeah.
And from a Black Magic viewpoint?
I think the degree for me is a indicator of an ability to learn, to absorb information, and to give that information out again. Somebody coming to me with a degree is not the finished article. They're going to need a lot of work to bring them towards being an engineer. And for the same reason, I would also look at other people coming to me with enthusiasm and skill who haven't got a degree, and I can see potential in them as well. So I don't think we should preclude people simply because they haven't got a degree. I think a degree is a fast track to learning. It's as Lawrence has said, it's an indicator for the industry. But there's a huge craft base out there of people who are willing to learn, who haven't gone through a formal education system. And as long as we can deal with that internally, then those people can become incredibly productive for us.
As a general question, there's different, of course, difference between learning and training. Now, universities are really centres of learning, and you can go to university and do a degree in Greek mythology. You also go to university and do a degree in television production. Now, the two actually outcomes are probably quite different. One is about you prove you can study and learn about Greek mythology. The other one is when you actually want a job, and your degree teaches you to be an engineer in broadcasting. So do you think that at universities can be far too academic, because by history they are run by academics, and academia is what they're all about, and something they've got to do training, which for some universities is a bit of a dirty word, because we don't do training, we do teaching here. And so how do you find this conflict between what you do, like training for broadcasting engineers, to a learning, or people next door to you learning about Greek mythology?
I think in the classic blue chip universities, that might be true, but when you look at the majority of the universities in the UK, where they've got strong links, we've got strong links with industry, we want to temper what we do with making students that are aimed at the industry. But like John said, we're not making the finished product.
No.
What we're doing is, it's like we're enabling them to get the driving test, and then you don't know how to drive just because you got your driving test.
Yeah, that's right.
It's when you then go into the industry.
My wife is a case example.
It's then
He's
you
not
go
here.
into the industry, you actually then learn how to do the job.
Right, okay.
Yeah? And I think that's a key differentiator.
You don't ever find there's a conflict between your Vice Chancellor and you and being learning and training?
There can be, but I always win.
Okay, excellent. Okay. I'd like to add to this debate about training and learning at universities. How you
I think
see
it's
it?
been quite well covered, but I mean, I agree with what you said, but it comes back to the previous point of it is, a combination, overused words I know, but it's blended learning. So it is, you do need a theory, and again, the car analogy. Obviously, until you pass your test, you can't really go on the motorway. So maybe it's the universities supply that foundation, but still working closely, with manufacturers.
Yeah.
And then you round off for that. But that's the journey of life, though, isn't it? It is a step-by-step thing, and it's only once you've actually got some hands-on experience under your belt, you become a better rounded individual with, able to offer and get to the top of the pile of CVs that have landed on somebody's desk for a job.
So, Lauren, I mean, you obviously work in that academic
Yeah,
institution.
I don't have a problem between training and in more sort of academic approach. It should be a balance between the two. And we're finding increasingly that a lot of the individual modules that we're writing have got a sort of roughly, it varies a bit, but it's either 70, 30, 80, 20 balance of practical to theoretical, and trying to balance the two. So I don't see a conflict there. I don't see a problem with it.
John, do you have any...
Well, I think 20 or 30 years ago, schools of film and television in the UK were seats of learning, and they were training as well, because it was the only place you could get your hands on the kit. These days, you can buy broadcast quality equipment in Currys. So people are actually purchasing equipment themselves. They are doing that training. They're getting that hands-on. And I feel the university is providing the intellectual stability, the actual thought process to say, well, now that you can use this toy, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to say? What statement are you going to make with it from a production point of view? And from an engineering point of view, now that you've got this and you're fascinated by it, let's see how it works. Let's get it together and make sure that you can build the next generation of toys.
Now, as like a rounding up sort of thing, I often meet, I have a feeling lots of students all want to be the next big DOP. They go out with their black magic cameras, which Sonys have, or F55, or the era which the universities have got, and they go out and make their little student films, some of which are very good, some of which are pretty rubbish. And they all think, when they leave uni, they're going to get a phone call from Steven Spielberg to come and work on his next feature film as his DOP. Now, how do you handle, how should we handle students' expectations? Because a lot of them seem to think they're going to go from uni and become the next big thing since sliced bread.
I think they've got to have a clear idea of the realism of the industry. It's an exciting industry to be in, but it's a hard industry to be in, and you've got to be able to put the hours in, the effort in, and the enthusiasm into it. Because the technology doesn't make the production, the technology enables the production. And working with a creative team is the fun of what we do.
Indeed, yes.
And they've got to understand that they've got to put the hours in. And so realistic expectations is a clear...
So you at Salford, do you find that students have too high expectations of life after uni?
I think they know, I think they understand that they're going to have to put the hours in, and they're going to have to put the effort in and work their way up through the system. Yeah, they might be plucked out of, but it very rarely happens. So it's wrong to give them that kind of expectation.
You must find at Sonys young people come to you and say, "Please, Sonny, can I borrow your F55, please?" Or because I'm going to make the best student film ever, and then I'm going to go and work in Hollywood. I mean, do you get this a lot? Do you get?
Yeah, we do actually get it a fair bit. But if I'm honest, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. I would never, ever want to stifle creativity or aspiration and even expectation. I think, again, that's sort of part of that learning journey is becoming a well-rounded human. And who knows, maybe they are the next Steven Spielberg. I think a lot of the master classes we run, we have a program called the ICE program. So it stands for Independent Certified Experts. So that we have about 190 or plus all around Europe, and these are freelancers who are at the very top of their field. So it may be a Steve Laws DOP, or it may be a storm chaser, Alistair Chapman, he's here today. These guys are the people we then put in contact with the next generation, and they can just get inspired. And again, it takes people like that. Why put down their hopes? It's a long, hard journey, but again, you learn that as you're going along. And if you've got the determination, theoretically, and the capability in time, there's no reason why you shouldn't get there.
Do Black Magic have similar sort of requests from umpteen students wanting to borrow your latest Ursa to make their student film with?
I think every manufacturer is going to get a phone call from a student at some point saying, I'm going to make the best film since whenever. And obviously, we do look at each claim coming in. Many colleges and universities are using our kit anyway, as they will with Sony's kit. So it's really about supporting them more than anything else, and providing showcases. We're actually more interested in seeing the finished result than the actual production itself. And I think as long as students have a level-headedness about them and realise that they can get help from distributors, from resellers, from practitioners themselves who are only too happy to talk. The stories we hear at trade shows of I've used your camera to make this and I had a wonderful time doing, those are the stories that we can then promote, I think. Right. And that will show to other students that if you do have the drive and enthusiasm and the level-headedness, the approach to the industry, then you will actually get on. But I do think that as you start off, as you're a journeyman in the industry, you've got to have a reality check and say, I've got to learn my craft. I've spent my time at university, but now I've got to learn the craft part of it and sort of interact with other people.
Yeah, I do find a number of students always want to make a science fiction or horror movie. It seems to be very popular amongst students. A number of student films I've seen which are a horror one or something just like that.
I think part of it's just managing their expectations, and that's why it's important that universities maintain links with the industry and with manufacturers and bring in master classes and guest lectures and all that, because that kind of gives them a more, it gives them the sort of the experience and the information that they need to be a bit more realistic. But you never want to sort of stifle the talent, but you do have to try and manage it.
So just as well, I think getting on a bit. So just to finish up there, as a university, what would you, as your wish list, what I really, really want, what do you really, really want from industry?
I think a close...
And talk to Sonny, they're very rich.
Hello.
What do you really, really want?
I think a close, ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
What happens is we have really good, periodically, that as companies change, we have really good links, and then all of a sudden it sort of goes a bit quiet. I think we need to build in a more coherent, long-term process so that we can hear what you guys are thinking and we can fold some of that back into what we're doing so that it isn't a one-way street. I think that's something that I've heard before, that education just sucks in information from manufacturers and broadcasters and doesn't really give that much of that way, apart from our graduates. So it's that thing about making it more of a two-way street, I think.
But Anne-Marie, you must find this very difficult then. You must have 100 universities all saying to you, come and work with us. So how do you, as a manufacturer, how do you then, and indeed Black Magic, how do you decide when to work with Salford or Manchester or Leeds or Southampton or Plymouth or wherever? I mean, how do you divide your loyalty, if that's the right word, between all these wonderful universities who all say they're the best and come and work with us, Mr. Sonny?
I think nothing happens overnight. There's a finite amount of resource, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a Sony training team ever since Sony Professional started, and that's been a constant, irrespective of any other changes that may have happened. So, from a longevity perspective, I think we absolutely create those links and keep them. It's events like this where we actually get to go, oh yeah, we haven't been talking much, we really should. But I certainly know for sure where we've made those connections, they've been for life. Yeah. So once we do, so I think we've just got to be methodical about hooking in. We have certainly the extended resource through our ISA freelancers to be able to connect with pretty much every university in one way or another in the UK.
So you're, Lawrence, you're more both production role, aren't you? So obviously you
production and
want
post, yeah.
Avid and Final Cut Pro and Da Vinci from Blackmagic, of course, come
Yeah,
and talk to
yeah.
you. What would be your wish list of what you would really
I
want?
think it's just developing long-term relationships with manufacturers and industry that's mutually beneficial for both. That's the key thing. That's I mean, a lot of the time, and I mean, I can only speak from Lawrence and myself. I mean, we do have a lot of good relationships with quite a broad range of companies. But I think that's what you've got to do, but you've got to work it out long term for and mutually beneficial.
So from a Blackmagic viewpoint, then how does Blackmagic? I think Blackmagic, if I may be wrong, it's slightly smaller than Sony. I get a feeling it's not such a multinational company as Sony is. So how does Blackmagic then sort of deal with 400 universities or saying, please, can I have one of your Da Vinci codes to play? Not Da Vinci code, Da Vinci process to.
Well, the advantage about Da Vinci is it's free, so everybody
Yeah,
can have it.
whatever it is. Okay, how do you
But on the other hand, there is a limited resource. I think the most important thing that Lawrence brought up was that it's the maintenance of the dialogue. As long as that dialogue is there, we're there to listen, and as the universities are there to listen, and I know it will be exactly the same with Sony, that we all live in a busy environment, and if people aren't knocking on the door continually, some things do get forgotten.
Yep.
So maintain the dialogue, make sure that you are putting requests in all the time. I mean, for me, one of the important things for engineers is the ability to play. We talked about it earlier. And if we can supply pieces of equipment that are maybe not mainstream, that you've got a lovely television studio that you don't want your students to pull apart, but if you want some bits of kit that are XRMA or something like that we can actually get them to prize apart and understand what the components are inside, these are things that we can assist with. And I think it's just maintaining the dialogue and making sure that the two areas, the engineering or the manufacturing side and the education side, are talking to each other.
Well, thank you. I think we're only supposed to be 45 minutes, and it's almost 25 past already. I think for anybody here who'd like to have an extra question to our lovely panellists up here, post this. I'm sure you'll be very happy to talk to you over an interesting cup of coffee and maybe even a bun. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for coming to this wonderful Kit Plus Roadshow. And I'm here all day, so talk to me as a chair of ITTP. Please talk to us all later on. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.